My name is Katie Loesel, and I'm an artist. I work mostly in printmaking and drawing. I also teach printmaking. I work in the BCA print studio, and I'm also a screen printer. The work that I'm going to tell you about tonight is from my Plastoglomerate series. And most of the works that I'm going to show you tonight consist of prints that were made on a traditional etching press that looks a lot like this one. And these prints were made using multiple plates printed together in layers on the same piece of paper to create a layered image with densely packed colors. A couple of the processes that I commonly use in these prints include monoprinting, where the ink is rolled out onto a surface, and that surface is manipulated in some way, maybe with a stencil, maybe by subtracting or adding some more ink. And then that is run through the press and transferred onto the paper. I also have created these plates using a process called carborundum collographs. Carborundum is also known as silica carbide. It's actually present in meteorites, but it also can be made synthetically. It's an abrasive material that's used for a lot of industrial practices, but I'm basically making my own sandpaper with it. So I can make these shaped plates, and the grit of the carborundum will hold the ink to create a textured surface. The Plastoglomerate work is based on these rock specimens that were found in Hawaii, and they're rocks that were formed, and they actually have plastic in them that has come from our wonderful Pacific garbage patch. So all of these plastics that never go away and just continuously break down into smaller and smaller pieces have become embedded in our geologic history. So with the work that I'm creating, I'm sort of imagining these abstracted versions of the rock formations. So my take on it is to sort of use bright colors to imagine the plastics embedded in these multi-layered prints. The surfaces change, and all the prints are unique. I don't addition them, so they vary as I'm building them. In this print, the dark area with the purplish ink is the carborundum grit, so that's where my sort of like homemade sandpaper collects the ink. And I'm interested in these images being seemingly playful, even though they're sort of based on this horrific human interference in the planet. And the Plastoglomerate rocks are sort of seen in the scientific community as a possible marker of the Anthropocene epoch, which is a new era that we're in where humans have greatly influenced the planet. So I'm using these colors and layers to meld them together into these prints. And I like to densely pack the areas to sort of create a portrait of the rock. And I'm also interested in sort of thinking in a science way about cellular formations and possibly looking at these things under a microscope. So thinking about cross sections, thinking about this as evidence, and thinking about the accumulation, and the accumulation being part of the accumulation in the garbage patch, the accumulation in the layers of the print, and the accumulation in like the density of the imagery as well. I've also been adding some netting sort of imagery, thinking about the plastic that may be coming from the fishing industry. A lot of nets end up in the ocean. I am interested in the objects being simple layers that come together to form complicated structures. The next few prints were all made at the same time, and these are ones where I'm really thinking about that idea of the microscope, and I'm working in really transparent layers to build up the image. So, adding transparency to the ink so that the colors behind can shine through, and thinking about how these strange, sort of alien, amorphous rocks might look from the inside, if you could sort of get in there and dive in. The human interference in our planet is something that I really feel like bringing that into my work has sort of changed how I think about making the art, and I think having that as sort of my motivating factor has really made me just want to build more and more of these prints, because I really want people to think about the horror of it, but also think about, you know, the beautiful things that we can create as well. And this is an example of a piece with a lot of stencils, so overlaying stencils to sort of block out certain areas so that other colors can show through. This piece is a drawing, so everything else you've seen are prints, but I also have done some drawings in this series, and in a lot of the drawings I was really interested in using bright colors to denote the idea of the plastics, and the orange kind of is coming for me from snow fencing, that sort of woven texture, and just like that really vibrant orange, I think it's an interesting color, and I like to pair it with some of the other like gray down colors. And I also use a lot of blues and greens thinking about water as well, since, you know, originally this all came from the water. So my work is on view out in the world at Northern Daughters. I'm going to be in a group show, and I also have work at the New Duds holiday sale. You can see my work online as well, and it's available through Turning Art. And just something I always want the viewer to take away from this series is to really think about how you use plastic in your life and how you can maybe cut back on that, especially with single-use plastic, which is the most wasteful type, and plastic bags. And also, you know, just think about leading closer to a zero-waste life if you can.